Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. Blessed November, it's Angelica, your friendly neighborhood ghost, here with a cosmic forecast that's as goth and intense as Scorpio itself. So let's turn on some Joy Division. Pull out your clove cigarettes and espressos because we are dealing with Scorpio. And so as we move deeper into the dark half of the year, our march towards night will not be gentle. So as we begin our month, we are still walking with the ancestors as we align with Samhain, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, the Days of the Dead, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. We are primed to be receiving messages from our guides. So we start November off in Scorpio season, which really will help you be in touch with your shadow side. Now, Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So why are you telling me that, Ange? Well, okay, I'm telling you that because Scorpio's watery energy and nature, its movability, is in opposition to its nature as a fixed sign. So it can mean Scorpio's times are often filled with dichotomies, wanting to flow and move and also be stubborn, wanting to push the envelope, wanting to be a rebel, and also get mad when others do not follow the rules. Like those wanting to ground by looking at the sky. That's very Scorpioan energy. So, Scorpio is totally fine with that internal opposition. It's those of us without massive Scorpio placements that might feel a bit out of sorts. So Scorpio is one of those signs also that has been traditionally ruled by Mars, the fiery god of war. He rules the watery, intense, fixed sign of Scorpio in traditional astrology. Nothing can go wrong there, right? So with Scorpio kind of chilling in the Mars family with Aries, modern astrologers were like, no, let's look at what Scorpio is. He wears all black, put eyeliner on, contemplates life and death all the time, makes inappropriate jokes, collects weird taxidermy. Scorpio belongs with Pluto, the god of the underworld. So we think of Scorpio being ruled by both Pluto, the planet ruled by death and change and transformation, and Mars, the planet that rules war and fire and that kind of energy. So we can think of Scorpion energy as being intense, pushing for deep transformation, letting go, starting anew in a powerful way. So Scorpio energy encourages us to both confront hidden truths, because Scorpio is a secret keeper. Okay? Think of what the scorpion does. You don't know that little tail is going to be the thing that gets you. You think it's going to be the claws out in front, right? It hides its poison, hides its weaponry, and then it comes out and gets you, right? Scorpio also hides that energy. So it helps confront hidden truths, dive into emotional depths, and set intentions around transformation, healing, and empowerment. What's so interesting is when I first started doing work, I worked with Athena Parakis. I took her first magical sabbatical class that she ever offered. And what was cool about that, well, she offered online. I don't know if she offered in person, but we were doing intention work. So we made medicine bundles and carried that through. And, what I realized during that work is still the thing that I bring into all of my moon cycle coaching sessions, which is it isn't really calling in new energy. It's really releasing the stuff blocking you. Like what you have is already there. We could say, I want to write a book. Well, that book's in you, right? It is going to come from you. You may have to do some research, yes, but I mean, in general, it just has to come out. So what is blocking us from writing the book? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's energy. Maybe it's distractions. Maybe it's I'm too busy. My priorities are here. I'd rather watch, RuPaul's Drag Race. Whatever it may be. So what we're doing is notice that's what we do. We set the intention, then we start to notice all the things coming up for us. Well, this is why Scorpio happens in November. And you know what, one of the things Athena used to say was like, November is a huge manifestation month. And I think it's because we are in Scorpio. And we don't think of Scorpio as a manifestation sign necessarily or constellation, but it can be, because it helps us explore those parts of ourselves that we reject and hide. And that shadow stuff is the stuff that once we move it away, we get to move into our greatest, you know, abundance dreams, right? What we really, really want. So Scorpio season can be a period of healing and renewal and really exploring the depth of who we are. And not just who we are, but who we are in our relationships. You know, we kind of work with relationship too. So you can see where this might hit you the hardest by checking where Scorpio falls in your chart. And what I mean by that is look at the house that Scorpio falls in. And I'm thinking of it in terms of whole house astrology. And you might do astrology in a different way. But the quick rundown is, if your rising sign is always in your first house, in whole house, right? So let's say Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It might be easier to follow if we do it this way. If Aries is your rising sign, it will be in your first house. And then that means that Taurus is in your second house, and that Gemini is in your third house, and Cancer's in your fourth house, and Leo's in your fifth house. And then that means that Virgo is in your sixth house, and Libra's in your seventh, and Scorpio is in your eighth house. In astrology, we can think of the planets as being the actors of the birth chart. The signs that they're in are the roles that they're playing, and the houses are the stages. That's where it's going to happen. So when we are talking about that, you know, Aries house being in the eighth, right? Like Aries rising, you're going to have Scorpio in your eighth house. That's death, mental health, and other people's resources. That's going to be a place where Scorpio shines, right? For me, my rising is Gemini. So Gemini is in my first house, Cancer is in my second house, Leo is in my third house, my fourth house is Virgo, my fifth house is Libra, my sixth house, work, health, and pets, is Scorpio, right? Which is very interesting to think about. So when we think about what that's all about, you know, we're going to see like, okay, well, this is where Scorpio's living, and this is one of the houses that gets like, the sixth house is like a bad rap, right? Because it signifies health concerns and your everyday toils, which is life and death. And I am one of those people that does collect skulls and puts it in my house, you know. It can denote illness, so, but it's also related to healers and midwives and witches and medicine people. So if I'm kind of working with Scorpio in my house of healing, that means I'm going to be walking with, you know, death, right? With life and death issues, with deep issues, underworld issues, anger issues, shadow issues. That's exactly what I focus all my work on. So very interesting to look at. So, you know, as you kind of explore your feelings in the next few weeks, especially the ones you tend to ignore, and integrate the parts that you sometimes reject or hide, this period of healing renewal can be really life-changing, right? It can really put us on the path of, you know, looking at what we can transform in our lives. So, you know, while we kind of think of 2025 is almost over, it's really not done with us yet. And, you know, November's astrology is a time of shifts and revelations before the year wraps up. So, you know, we are looking at our final Mercury retrograde, some planetary shifts. We have some retrogrades, but we also have some things moving direct. We have a full moon in Taurus on the 5th and the new moon on the 20th still in Scorpio. So, you know, we want to talk about those key astrological events in November. And so let's start. I mean, we're kind of like I said, we're starting with some of these days of death that we walk through, the days of the dead, and we're honoring the ancestral energies and walking through them. And, it is powerful work. So on November 4th, Mars moves into Sagittarius. So it kind of trades Scorpio's brooding precision with like the fire and joy of Sagittarius. So after that time in Mars with emotional excavation, Mars kind of wants movement in Sagittarius. So expect motivation, boldness, a little ready, aim, fire energy. So you'll feel it kind of in your bones, and that itch to move and to speak and to act and to put yourself out there. So if you've been working on something, planning it, doing all that stuff, it can be really freeing and passionate and empowered when it moves into Sagittarius. So the only thing is to remember to think before you speak, aim before you shoot, that kind of stuff. So it really is, though, a time of confidence and courage when we have Sagittarius and Mars. So then we have the full moon in Taurus, which is a super moon, and it's exalted in Taurus. And in this day of days, we're kind of looking at Venus, the ruler of the moon, being in her home sign in Libra. So that means the moon is like at its awesomeness. And so Taurus is ruled by Venus, so we're kind of seeing all these connections and reminding us of the sensual. And I don't mean sexual, I mean sensual, the body, senses. We're reminding us that like we need to touch the earth, we need to eat delicious things, we need to wrap ourselves in cozy blankies, and really thinking about the earthly container that we're in and how caring for the self, for the body, can support transformation. So if something's ending, let it. If something's blooming, enjoy it. This is really time to work with embodiment and being part of the body. This also means that this full moon is a time to be incredibly present in this moment, present in your body. Okay? Remember, of course, the sun is still in Scorpio, so it wants to go deep. But if you can keep reminding yourself to be present, that can be helpful. The following day, November 6th, Venus, the planet of relationships, is moving into Scorpio. That's basically, how do I say this? It is a spicy time. Boundaries get tested. And, it pushes our fears to forefront. It's kind of like that deepness comes into our relationships. So we work with things like trust and intimacy and jealousy and fear and possessiveness. All that stuff can come to the surface because it's, asking us during Scorpio, to like go deep. So we want to show up authentically and share our emotions with people. But we also have to learn that we need depth, not drama, right? Remember, like, the shadow of going deep or, having emotions is that dramatic energy. And that drama energy is really that childlike, like, I'll take any attention, good or bad, right? Depth means like, yes, I'm going into hard, dark territory, but I'm not going to make it someone else's problem, right? It's my work to do. And that's really important. So we're really leaning into honesty even when it feels uncomfortable. So on the 7th, Uranus, the planet of revolution and sudden changes, retrogrades back into Taurus. And that's going to echo themes from July 7th when Uranus was in this exact same spot. So just remember to check whether your life matches your values. Uranus retrograde in Taurus often shakes the ground beneath us. So we think of the things that we thought were stable might not be as stable as we thought. So innovation often will masquerade as chaos. So we have to really think about that stuff. And then Mercury stations retrograde in Sagittarius a few days later. And this is one of those things that everybody's like, oh no, it's a Mercury retrograde. It happens 3 times a year. It brings its typical delays with communication and travel and all those things and misunderstandings. It is an opportunity to go deep. So this guy that I know named Billy, and one year, I can't even remember if it must have been the spring when the clocks jumped forward in the US, and he's a hairdresser, and I guess probably people were coming in and complaining about it, but he wrote something like, "It's a time change, people. It happens twice a year. Go to bed already." Like, go to sleep, just like stop complaining and just go to sleep, just sleep it off, go to bed earlier. So like your classic retrograde advice stands. This happens 3 times a year. It's time to just figure out, what do you do? What's your Mercury retrograde protocol? Double check your plans. Don't sign any contracts. Watch your words. Maybe this is a time not to buy stuff. Leave a little early for everything, But when we kind of have Mercury retrograde in Sag, we are going to be looking at the stories we tell ourselves. Are they true? Are they not true? And, around the 18th, Mercury moves into Scorpio, and that will bring the old secrets up and the buried conversations into the light and all of that stuff. So that's a time to watch, like not oversharing, not creeping people out, journal, reflect, speak about what's going on with you only. We're taking inventory of ourselves. We're not inventorying other people's crap. All right, so November 11th, Jupiter begins its annual retrograde period, and that's time to reflect on your dreams and your beliefs. Once Jupiter goes retrograde in Cancer on the 11th, we're going to be looking at this energy, this Jupiter retrograde energy, happening until March 10th, 2026. So we have this opportunity during this time to really reflect on, what does home and family and belonging mean to us? Where do we feel safe? Are we feeling safe in our own house? That's an important one. Are we receiving the support we need? Are we yearning for anything? We're going to be building and expanding after Jupiter goes direct in 2026. So we can think of, and I like thinking of Jupiter this way because it helps me remember, Jupiter is the biggest planet, but so it helps expansion. So when Jupiter is retrograde, it expands inward. So you're nurturing your own emotional foundations. This is like where we talk about inner parenting, like parenting our inner child. So we have to figure out what makes us feel safe, who we are, and then we can expand outward. So you may feel like it's harder to make progress on some goals during this retrograde period, but it is a time to refine, reflect, and figure out what opportunities you actually want. Jupiter also deals with our belief system. And so we can kind of brainstorm and think about, how does this go on my larger values? How does it tie into my larger values? So on, let's see, the 20th, there's a new moon in Scorpio. That happens at 1:48 Eastern Time AM. So it may be the 19th where you are, if you're on the Pacific, in your Pacific time, that'll be 3 hours earlier, so that's the 19th. So just know you may see the 19th somewhere. That's just because of time zone differences. This lunation is really a portal, a release, rebirth, and revelation portal. So there are times of intuitive flashes. There's maybe a little divine chaos. New moons in Scorpio are like shadow alchemy. They compost fear into the fuel that drives you forward. So if you've been resisting change, the new moon in Scorpio makes it really hard to resist. The new moon in Scorpio really invites you to release the past. It invites you to, move forward with change, to say, I am not watering dead plants anymore. That dead plant's going out into the compost pile or whatever. It is time for divine downloads, for, all of those things. Just pause before you make decisions, okay? On the 21st of November, which is the day after the new moon, now the sun's moving into Sagittarius. And that is just opening the doors to the dungeon, right? Like light comes in. And I think of Sagittarius as every survivor player ever. They're super happy and optimistic and excited to be there, and they know they're going to make it to the final three. They think they have their whole plan in order. And then the actual survivor play is more like Scorpio season. You're starving, you're cold, you're paranoid, everything hurts. Scorpio drags us through the depths. And Sagittarius then lifts our eyes to the horizon. It is, if Scorpio is kind of looking at your own navel, Sagittarius is looking out at the world. And I don't mean to say that Scorpio is selfish. We need those navel gazing times. They're incredibly important. But Sagittarius puts us in that philosophical and adventurous state of mind. So we're curious. We crave more experiences. We think about the world. We like to travel, read, study. Education's huge for Sagittarius. So we're putting ourselves outside of the comfort zone and expanding our consciousness. And so we really are looking at how curiosity becomes a medicine during Sagittarius season. On the 27th, Saturn stations direct in Pisces after months of retrograde. So boundaries get clearer, commitments feel heavier in a good way. You've had a few months to review your goals. You had a few months to review your boundaries. Remember, Saturn's kind of like the taskmaster. And so now you're ready to kind of move forward with a plan, stronger sense of self. You can strengthen your foundation. You can strengthen your no, whatever that is. And on the day itself, November 27th, you might find yourself revisiting an important boundary that you set. So just kind of know that this is like, we keep getting these tests and we need to make sure our boundaries are set. It's kind of like dealing with a 3-year-old, right? Like, they'll keep pushing it just to see if you'll ever not give in. Then they just stop because they realize, oh, that boundary is solid, So the tone can be really serious. Your responsibilities can become more of a focus. I mean, Saturn isn't the most exciting planet to be, kind of dealing with, but it's a grown-up moment. It's adulting at its finest. And you'll know exactly what your structure needs and what you need to surrender and what you need to take responsibility for in your own healing. So on the 29th, Mercury retrograde ends in Scorpio. We have a little bit of a shadow period after any of those retrogrades. So, if you're like, it doesn't feel like it's direct. Well, yeah, it just takes, some time. It doesn't move fast directly right away. It just slowly moves, into going direct. So, just give it some time, but things start to clear up, miscommunications, things like that. Finally, Venus enters Sagittarius on the 30th of November, and that's just a little bit of a sparkle. After all of Scorpio's intensity, we're moving from the dominatrix layer into the wacky travel, meet cute, mishap rom-com. So this transit is really like a lighten up, babe transit. Love wants adventure now, and honesty and laughter and shared ideals. So this is really not a time to get pinned down. It's a time for adventure and trying new things. And this would be like, if you're single, I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, I'm going to try an app. It would be like, this is a time for me to meet up with somebody. You know what I mean? Or like go and do something I love and meet somebody else who also does stuff I love. You know what I mean? It is more adventurous than like clinical, or this is what I'm going to do, apply for a partner, that's a different energy altogether. But okay, 2025 isn't done with us. November's astrologically, though, will help us become stronger and sharper and clearer than we would. November is that wonderful month of calling in energy we want to hold, abundance energy, manifestation work. Scorpio, for all its metal death energy, really is helping us with a clean rebirth and a new path forward. So we really, it's hella hard to look at ourselves. It's hella hard to go deep. but that's the work we do. And so the wrap of November, might sound dark and hard, but it is transformative. And as I often say, the ego doesn't know the difference between transformation and annihilation. So when we're being destroyed, we are also being reborn. We just don't know which it is at the moment. So we can always remind ourselves, this isn't annihilation, this is transformation. And what do I want to be reborn into? So we can make that shizzle hapizzle, Scorpio shows us the underworld. Sagittarius teaches us how to walk into the light, carrying what matters to us most. So what is our earth medicine? I'm so glad you asked. Let's talk about the medicine. Our earth allies this month are Peony, Citrine, and Octopus. And the theme is grab it while you can, because Scorpio asks for death and rebirth, and Sagittarius asks, now what are you going to do with this one wild, precious second chance? So Peony comes in first. She is soft and lush and heartbreakingly beautiful. And she is actually the flower of November. And that's probably why I picked her. I don't remember. I love Peony. I cannot tell you, when Peony starts opening at my house, I do not love anything more than a bunch of peonies on my table. Her medicine really hums, and it teaches us the art of opening. She's beautiful when she's just that bud, right? And then she slowly, deliberately opens. It seems like, millimeter by millimeter, and each part of it is beautiful and vulnerable. And sometimes she needs help. If you've ever looked at a peony bulb, you'll see there's ants all around it. What they're really doing is eating all of the sweet sap, I don't know if it's called sap or nectar, that comes out of the peony that's holding it together. So the ants actually eat that, and that is what helps her open. So, before you bring peonies in the house, you have to watch, where are the ants, because I've once brought them in, and then they're like ants all over my table. I was like, God dang it. But anyway, in ancient or traditional Chinese medicine, peony root is a big medicine that is used, and she's prized for cooling energy, cooling the blood, easing pain, soothing cramps, literally helping the body relax its grip to open, right? Magically, when we work with her through magic, she protects and blesses. So planting peony in the gardens are about protecting the homestead, right? This month we think of Peony as the heart salve after Scorpio season. She reminds you that healing doesn't have to be sterile. It can be sensual and fragrant and soft. And we learn that through Taurus as well. So we can kind of connect it with that at the, full moon. So when the new moon pulls us deep into the release, working with Peony to open again gently on your own timing can be very helpful. Now, citrine is our stone medicine. Citrine's an interesting stone in that, if you were to tell me, Angie, you can only have 5 stones, citrine would be one of them. And I don't love citrine in the way that some people just love it. They have to have it everywhere. But when I use citrine, I use citrine. And lately it's been my go-to for the solar plexus, because it is a stone of hell yes. It's not a stone of nah, maybe, possibly. It is a burst of sunlight. It is a make it happen stone. It's a manifestation stone. It's a joy stone. It's an empowerment. It's a confidence booster. It helps with stamina. It helps with all kinds of physical healing. Now, it is a part of the quartz family. So we have clear quartz and amethyst and citrine. And citrine is basically clear quartz that came in contact with intense heat. And so you'll find citrine out in the market that's actually amethyst that's been baked. But, sometimes the iron causes the goldenness to it. So, but if you see citrine that's incredibly cheap and very dark, amber color or almost root beery, that is a baked amethyst. That is not citrine. You can use it, but it's just going to have a little different energy. The natural citrine, especially from Congo, are just super special right now. Sometimes they look almost like a smoky because they're like a tannish yellow, but they're not that deep color. You'll see, especially at the base, if it's on matrix, will be very dark, and then it'll kind of go up. So just kind of, or maybe the top is what's dark and the bottom is white, whatever. It just isn't all the way through. Whereas the Congo citrines will be the same color pretty much all the way through. And they are dark, some are darker, some are lighter, some are smoky, some are, but you'll see it being kind of uniform all the way through, whereas the baked ones aren't, They literally bake them, by the way. Okay, so anyway, this is perfect for like post-Scorpio resurrection work. When Mars fires up Sag, citrine can help you channel that spark into confidence instead of chaos. It really clears the residue of unworthiness that clings after long transformation work. It is also a stone of transformation, so don't be afraid to use it when the sun's in Scorpio. That's totally fine. Just keep it near when you feel that slump between who you were and who you're becoming. When you're feeling that annihilation, that citrine can remind you that you're transforming, right? That you're in the cocoon. You're about to start eating through it, right? So there's citrine. Our animal medicine is Octopus, the gorgeous shapeshifter of the deep. Her medicine belongs to the watery kingdom. And of course, Octopus medicine is deep, watery medicine that grabs you and grabs things to you. And when we're in the element of water or on the medicine wheel in the direction of the west, we can work with our own fear, emotional camouflage, desires and wants, shape-shifting and regeneration. Because remember, Octopus can regenerate a lost arm and teach you how to self-heal. Self-healing is an important part of our spiritual journeys. I mean, essentially, self-healing is resilience. Learning how to heal ourselves, learning how to self-soothe, learning how to move forward. So Octopus medicine comes in, we really think about her power and the model of self-healing. So when she loses an arm, she regenerates. She remembers her body and can teach us to remember ourselves literally and figuratively, connecting us with our past and future self to slowly regrow an arm. She often has to sacrifice an arm to survive, and that model for us can show us that our hurts are sacrifices for deeper growth and survival. So when she's threatened, she camouflages. An octopus is a master of camouflage and can slide into very small spaces. The only hard part of her is her beak. So her ability to disguise herself is unmatched. And she can kind of change color and texture to mimic rocks, sand, plants. She's a wonderful guide when you're healing and need to protect yourself. If you're avoiding being seen, which many of us are if we grew up in, households with abuse or neglect or alcoholic parents or addict parents, octopus or parents with mental illness, to be fair, octopus can act as a barometer. When do you want to be seen? When do you want to hide? Choosing an invisibility as an adaptive technique for those who experience trauma can be important, but if it continues to be hypervigilance and joy limiting behavior, then octopus can help you know when to be seen, when to hide. So people always ask me, how do you work with these animals? Well, for me, I journey. I look at the medicine they have to offer me. What are they teaching me? So a great documentary for octopus medicine is My Octopus Teacher, which is, this man becomes friends with an octopus, basically. Because octopus are incredibly intelligent and aware, and they mine those deep waters. So octopus medicine is about boundaries, adaptability, and knowing when to hide versus when to shine. So if you're getting dragged into those emotional riptides, octopus can be a guide. And she'll show you how to move fluidly, how to protect yourself without disappearing. And remember, invisibility can be a skill, not a wound, if it's chosen with awareness. And that's the important thing. It's the mindfulness that we choose these behaviors. Like I remember doing intuitive eating, like coaching with a woman, and she said, it's not bad when you overeat to or we use food for an emotional reason. It's just knowing that you're doing that. I've had a bad day. I'm going to reward myself with, a glass of wine or an ice cream cone or something like that. That's not necessarily bad if we know that we're doing that. If every day at the same time, like we get home from work and I need a glass of wine, that's that mindless. And what you're doing is you're mindlessly using the wine for the emotional soothing. Do you understand the difference between that, hopefully? So anyway, together the medicines really tell the story of the month. So Peony softens what's dying. Octopus teaches us resilience of the in-between. And Citrine helps us grab the gold that comes with surviving yourself. So, for the graphic of the month, I have this octopus that has things in all of his arms or her arms. A surfboard to ride the waves that come with the emotional volatility that happens with life. Citrine in one arm and Peony in the other. And I probably chose the Peony because of it being the November month flower. But, I really do love them. And I think they're so beautiful. And the caption is, grab it while you can. And this is kind of the medicine of this month is, if we have joy, grab it. Seeing something luminous is waiting for you to grab it. November can feel dark and gritty, but this is the sacred compost. We're not being destroyed, we're being reforged. And like I said, the ego doesn't know the difference between annihilation and transformation. It just knows it's losing control. And so let it. And something luminous is right there for you, waiting for you to grab it while you can. So may you find your courage in the dark, your laughter in the ashes, and your magic in the messy middle. So be blessed and blessed rebirth. See you in December, or hear you in December, or talk to you in December. All right. Ciao. Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.